As I have gotten older, two of my pet peeves. One is if we say a program is starting at 7, the program is starting at 7. And secondly, we're not going to wait an hour till everybody's served before we start the second half of the program. So again, please get to your seats. I welcome all of you to this historic event. 50 years ago, we had our first Hall of Fame, 1968. Bob Gibson got inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1968. However, this is the first time in many years that we have had the Hall of Fame at a different time than we've had the athletic banquet. It has been 24 years since Coach Altman stepped foot on Creighton's campus, and it's been 15 years since Kyle Korver left campus, and there have been a lot of people that have asked, why have they not been inducted into the Hall of Fame before now? And the very simple answer is that the athletic director wasn't smart enough to figure out a time to get them both in. Before we get to the program, there's some people that I need to thank. First of all, my staff. Rachel Ryder, Adrian Dowell, Adrian Ryder, Mark Bergers, Margaret Bennett, Patty Gallus, all of them have done an unbelievable job with this program. Also, as I've gone around the country and had an opportunity to experience a lot of other athletic departments, I don't think people in this room know how talented our staff is. I'm blessed every day to have the awesome staff that I have. I'd like to thank the Korver family, the Altman families for being here. Seeing all the Altmans reminds me when we hired Dana, our attendance went up about 10% just from people from Wilbur. I watched, last night we had the alums at our soccer match, and then today we had a luncheon, and then we had an alumni game, which was interesting. But, and I'm going to have those players and coaches stand in a minute. But watching the interaction last night and today reminded me of why we're in this sport and why some teams are more successful than others. You know, we all set goals, and typically we set goals high enough that we rarely reach them. But when I watched this group of players last night, today at lunch, and at the alumni game, it became obvious to me a few things that I saw with this group. They obviously love each other and they love the game. They were willing to play a role for the betterment of the team. Everybody on the team was important. The name on the front of the jersey was more important than the name on the back of the jersey. And they always played hard, they played together, they recognized and loved each other. And I don't care whether you meet your goals or not. If that's what happens in your attempt to reach your goal, then the process has been tremendous. And it was fun to see this group again. So I would like to have all the former players and all the former coaches stand up, please. We have a number of members of the Creighton Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame, who are here also. And hold your applause to the end, but as I give their names, will you please stand up and stay standing? Mike Finley, Nate Funk, Bob Harstad, Jim Hendry, Kevin McKenna, Ryan Sears, Johnny Torres, Bob Warming. Please stand. And I would also like our current Creighton men's basketball staff to stand. They've done a tremendous job of carrying forward the Creighton tradition and culture. Have them stand, please. Jim Valvano, in his famous Never Give Up speech, said, "To me, there are three things we all should do every day of our lives. Number one is laugh. You laugh every day. Number two is think. You should spend some time every day in thought. And number three is you should have your emotions moved to tears. It could be happiness or joy, but think about it. If you laugh, if you think, and if you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. I am convinced that today is going to be a heck of a day." Many have wondered how we were able to recruit Kyle Korver to come to Creighton. This is still somewhat of a mystery. The son of a pastor of the Third Reformed Church in Pella, Iowa, a Dutch community in central Iowa surrounded by 4 Division I institutions, Iowa, Iowa State, Drake, and Northern Iowa. Didn't they know, as we did, that Kyle would not only be a college basketball All-American, they would also be one of the great shooters in NCAA and NBA history, that he would have a long and illustrious NBA career, including being an NBA All-Star and being one of the greatest shooters in NBA history? Why did these 4 universities not know what we knew? It is easier to explain how we convinced Dana Altman to come and stay at Creighton for 16 years. If you know the Jesuits, there are logical answers. Dana's from Wilbur, Nebraska, the Czech capital of Nebraska. We all know how much the Jesuits love Czechs. Also, rather than settling for, "I gave it my best shot," this was something that drove Coach nuts. He didn't like you to say, "I gave it my best shot." He had a strong will to find a way to get it done. And he put that same strong will in his players. Not settling for, "I just gave it my best shot." And again, we all know where there's a will, there's a Jesuit. Speaking of the Jesuits, I will now bring to the stage a Jesuit who not only knows the importance of checks and strong wills, but is also the right person to be the president of Creighton at this time. In my 38 years at Creighton, I've always been proud of my university. I've been excited to come to work every day. However, I've never been more excited about Creighton than I am today, and a lot of it has to do with our current president, Father Daniel S. Hendrickson, S.J., Society of Jesus. Father Hendrickson.
Bruce, in baseball terminology, that's 2 strikes. Thank you very much, Bruce. And welcome to all of you gathered here tonight for this very special event, the Creighton University Athletics Hall of Fame. Our athletic teams, our coaches, our staff, they bring so much to the Creighton experience for all of us. And I couldn't be more grateful, and I know that you're also very grateful. Before I get started, let me take a moment to recognize any of our trustees and trustees emeriti who do so much for Creighton. Also, if you're here as a trustee or trustee emeriti, Ryan Zabrowski, Ron Gartland, please just stand for a minute, and any others, and let us recognize your leadership. Thank you very much. Our Provost and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Tom Murray, and his wife, Christina, join us this evening. And as President and Provost, and as our university at large, we are so thankful as well for all of you, our friends, our benefactors, our supporters, who help make Creighton University Blue Jays nationally competitive, newsworthy, and accomplished in and on both the courts and the classrooms. Furthermore, please join me in thanking the athletic department staff, all of our coaches, and our athletic director, Bruce Rasmussen, for all they do on the behalf of this great university. Now tonight, is more pointedly and exceptionally about our Hall of Fame inductees, Coach Dana Altman and Kyle Korver. I want to express my esteem and my recognition for the ways that you both lived the mission of Creighton University in your professional and your personal lives. My congratulations and that of the whole university to both of you for this well-deserved honor with Creighton Athletics. You have made the university proud. Thank you both for coming back to Creighton for this very genuine expression of our admiration and appreciation for you and your careers. Likewise, we are so grateful that so many of Dana's and Kyle's friends and former teammates, their family members, those who played with Kyle and for Dana could be here tonight as we celebrate these two very remarkable leaders and individuals. Before we enjoy dinner and the program to follow, I do want to share with you what makes me especially pleased with the athletics program, and particularly so of our student athletes here at Creighton. In addition to athletic performance and community service, my esteem regards a sincere and recognizable emphasis that is placed on their academic achievement. And this too reflects back to Dana's leadership in our men's basketball program and to Kyle's time as a student athlete. Kyle, you do not know this, but when I was teaching in the Department of Philosophy in the early 2000s, both you and I enrolled in a computer programming summer course where one of us excelled and the other did not. Let's just say I dropped the course and moved on in life. The 2017-18 school year was the most successful academically in the history of Blue Jay athletics. We recorded our highest average semester team grade point average of 3.46. Creighton had 153 student athletes recognized in the Big East Conference with selection to the 2017-18 Big East All-American team. Last fall, 34 student athletes achieved a 4.0 GPA, and then in the spring, another 30 also accomplished the same. And cumulatively, 83% of our student athletes earned a GPA of 3.0 or higher, our best ever. Congratulations to all of our student athletes. Thank you again, everyone, for being here with us tonight to celebrate the very special, talented people in Creighton athletic community, both past and present, and most especially tonight, Dana Altman and Kyle Korver. And please know of my gratitude to so many of you who generously support the Blue Jays in a variety of impressive ways. We do not take you for granted. And now let us pray. Good and loving God, we are thankful for the full range of gifts that are present in our lives. We are especially grateful for a sharing of tremendous resources for the good of our students, particularly those shared by the friends and benefactors who gather here this evening. Bless Creighton University in all our efforts to educate and transform women and men, and especially our student athletes in their studies and athletic competition, and call forth from them a sharing of their own gifts. Bless our benefactors who inspire us with support and generosity. Let them know our sincere gratitude. Please bless Dana Altman and Kyle Korver in the important work that they do and in the myriad ways they impact so many people in their lives. And bless our entire Creighton community on campus, around our city, and at locales far afield. Invite us to recognize and respond to the needs of the world and to be ever grateful. We ask you to bless this food we receive, and likewise bless all those who have played a great part in bringing it to our tables. We pray in and of so many different traditions and through Christ our Lord. Amen. Enjoy the night, everyone.
A lot of you have not received your food yet, and a lot of you that have received it are still eating, but we trust that Creighton fans know how to listen and eat at the same time, so we're going to get started with the second part of the program. Tonight we celebrate Dana Altman and Kyle Korver, two of the giants in Creighton basketball history. But we're also here to celebrate Creighton University basketball, Creighton University, and our tremendous supporters. In February of 1994, over 24 years ago, we decided to make a change in our men's basketball program. In spite of a great and proud tradition with our basketball program, from National Basketball Hall of Fame coaches Eddie Hickey and Eddie Sutton, to the coach, Red McManus, to Tom Apke and Tony Baroni, In spite of that tradition, the men's basketball program in 1994 and our athletics department at Creighton, we were in serious jeopardy. We had won a total of 24 games in the previous 3 seasons. We had a 32-game road losing streak. We averaged just over 2,000 fans per game, and that's because if you went out to the concession stand or restroom and came back in, we counted you twice. We had about 200 members in our JBAC organization. Our total revenue as a department was less than $1 million a year. Our facilities on campus and at the Civic Auditorium were awful, and there was some discussion on campus as to whether Creighton should continue to be in Division I athletics. Because of all these concerns and more, a committee of about 20 people, which included faculty and staff and some supporters of Creighton athletics, were asked by the Creighton Board of Trustees to create a strategic plan for our men's basketball program. One of the values of athletics is that the inconceivable is conceived and then achieved. We can do a lot more individually, and we can do a lot more as a team than we ever thought we could. It's also that way in your personal life. What seemed inconceivable in 1994 has come true in virtually every year since. Not just because of Dana and Kyle, although they had a great impact, but because of assistant coaches, staff, players, Creighton administration, and unbelievable supporters of our program. I've observed in my career that the success of a team, the success of a family, the success of a business, the success of a community is often less dependent upon those people in the spotlight than it is the faithfulness, the dedication, and the loyalty of people that are not in the spotlight. So while we are deservedly recognizing 2 of the giants who were and certainly have been in the spotlight, we would be remiss not to recognize and thank all of those not in the spotlight who had a lot to do with our success. I'm going to read, and if you'll indulge me, part of the strategic plan we developed 24 years ago. It's probably not a lot different than the strategic plan of a lot of men's basketball programs. However, few schools have accomplished it successfully as Creighton has virtually every year since 1994. So a few bullets from the strategic plan. The coaching staff will recruit, retain, develop, and graduate outstanding students who also happen to be athletes. The players will use their basketball experience to grow and develop as people who will make a positive impact on society and demonstrate a commitment to others above and beyond being a student and an athlete, modeling the mission of Creighton University for all of our students. As I read through this, think about what our student athletes, our men's basketball program, how are we living up to these? The coaching staff will provide an environment in which the student athletes involved can improve to the best of their abilities and desires. The men's basketball program will positively interact with, unite, and excite their many families at Creighton University, their team, the athletic department, the student body, faculty and staff, alumni, boosters, and fans. The men's basketball program will be a major source of revenue for the athletics department, will continue to grow as a source of revenue for the department to meet the growing demands of being in Division I athletics, and will have a positive financial impact on the development needs of the university as a whole. The men's basketball program will be competitive within the Missouri Valley and the NCAA, and the men's basketball program will comply with Creighton and NCAA policies and procedures. That was a little bit of a nugget of the strategic plan. We also developed a picture of the ideal candidate we wanted to lead Creighton basketball. I believe that in hiring for any position, what you should start with is creating a picture of the ideal person you want in that position, and then go out and identify that person and to do everything you can into talking into them into taking the position. Okay. The first criteria we had in 1994 was pretty bold for a school with poor facilities, a poor budget, little fan base, and a 32-game road losing streak. We wanted our new coach to already have documented success as a Division I head coach at the national level, and we hired the Big 8 Coach of the Year. Have no NCAA violations, work with a diverse population, possess outstanding verbal skills, install a deep sense of pride in Creighton, understand the importance of the alumni and the Omaha community, work with limited resources. That was in there twice. The Jesuits take a vow of poverty, and in those days they expected us to live it. And I know that's 3 strikes, Father. But in a baseball game, there are 3 outs in an inning, and there are 27 outs in the game. I got a ways to go. Possess or develop strong Nebraska ties and a willingness to recruit area student athletes, improve student body participation, show a strong ability as a teacher of the game who also treats people, especially student athletes, in the proper way, and above all, possess high character. I believe that's a pretty good description of Dana Altman. I also think it's a pretty good description of our current coach, Greg McDermott. Dana Altman has been Coach of the Year in every conference he has coached. When he was at Fairbury Community College, Moberly Community College, Marshall, Kansas State, Creighton, and Oregon. And listen to this. He is one of only 6 active coaches in NCAA Division I with 20 consecutive winning seasons. Only 6 in the country. The others are all in the National Association Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame. Coach Krzyzewski, Tom Izzo at Michigan State, Roy Williams, Bill Self, Jim Boeheim, and Dana Altman. And I don't know about you, but I think it might be easier to have 20 consecutive winning seasons at Duke, Michigan State, North Carolina, Kansas, or Syracuse than Creighton and Oregon. Okay? Coach had 620 division wins in 29 seasons. Creighton was in the NCAA tournament 7 times during Dana's career at Creighton. We won 10 or more games in the Missouri Valley Conference play in 14 consecutive years, unmatched in the over 100-year history of the Missouri Valley Conference. He was a finalist for National Coach of the Year in 2003 while at Creighton, and he was National Coach of the Year in 2013 at Oregon. Took Oregon to the Final Four in 2017. More importantly, throughout his career, Dana has demonstrated great passion, intelligence, and high character, and has demanded that of his players. Every single year his teams pressed, played hard, and played together. And one never had to worry about how he represented his program, his team, the university, or the community. And his players and teams have been a reflection of the coach. Let's fast forward from 93-94, averaging about 2,000 people a game, to 2002-2003, Kyle Korver's last year at Creighton. In 2002-2003, we had 14 games at the Civic Auditorium with crowds over 8,000, which was either close to or above the capacity of the Civic Auditorium. We also had the highest student average attendance of any year in Creighton history, including our years at the CHI Health Center. In basketball, Kyle was an All-American as a senior. He owns Creighton and Missouri Valley Conference records for three-pointers made, is 6th all-time in NCAA history in three-pointers made, scored over 1,800 points at Creighton, led Creighton to 4 consecutive NCAA tournaments, and was 2-time Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. Amazingly, he is beginning his 16th season in the NBA. I don't know if you're aware of this. The average length of an NBA player's career is 4.5 years. In 2010, Kyle shot 53.6% from three for the year, the highest three-point percentage in NBA history. For those of you that understand this number, the effective field goal percentage was 80.4%. In 2014, he was on the U.S. national team roster. In 2015, he was an NBA All-Star. He played over 1,100 games in the NBA, the equivalence of 37 college basketball seasons, and yet he hasn't aged much. He led the NBA in three-point field goal percentage 4 times. He is 4th in the NBA in career three-point field goals made, behind only Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, and Jason Terry, and his field goal percentage is higher than any of those 3. He is definitely one of the greatest shooters in NCAA and NBA history. It's extremely difficult to be an outstanding Division I basketball player. It's difficult to be an outstanding student at Creighton University. It's also difficult to be a person committed to others. It's almost impossible to do these 3 things simultaneously, and yet Kyle did exactly that. If we were to define our ideal student, or if we were to define our ideal student athlete, in both you'd see a picture of Kyle Korver. Kyle is not only a reflection of what we want for our students, or for our students who are athletes, or what we as parents want our sons and daughters to be, he is also a reflection of what God wants to see in each of us. Our supreme desire should be to glorify God by the way we live. Kyle has done exactly that. And this is more important than any of the amazing statistics he has had at the NCAA or at the NBA level. I'll give you a few examples. The Kyle Korver Foundation. Kyle's passion for basketball is closely paired with his desire to make a difference in the life of others. In every city that he has played in, Kyle began working with loyal charities and maintains those relationships and support even after he's left those communities. Also in 2015, he was selected by his peers, the NBA players, for the Sportsmanship Award as the player who most exemplifies the ideals of sportsmanship on the court with ethical behavior, fair play, and integrity. Could also be said of the way he conducts himself off the court. He's been a 4 or 5-time participant of Basketball Without Borders. He's been to China, he's been to India, South America, South Africa, in the NBA's Community Outreach Program, which is very much like Creighton's Global Initiative. He's been a 2-time finalist for the NBA's prestigious J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award, which is an award given to a player, coach, or staff member who shows outstanding service and dedication to the community. Rather than have Kyle and Dana give speeches, we're going to try a different format this evening. Former Creighton basketball player Nick Baugh and I are going to bring Coach and Kyle to the stage and have a conversation with those two, hopefully covering some of the information all of you came to hear. For those that don't know Nick, he is currently has a sports talk show on 1620 The Zone, and where Nick's working on several national sports talk show records. One is the most hours spent talking about a coach that has not won a game at his current university. And the second is talking about a team that was 4-8 last year. These are Cal Ripken type accomplishments. I don't think they'll ever be broken. Seriously, Nick is a rising star in both talk radio and in men's basketball nationally as an analyst. His personality, his understanding of the game, his communication skills really do make him one of the rising stars in men's basketball as a national analyst. So we're going to bring to the stage Nick, Kyle, and Coach. hope these are on. Can you hear me? We'll see how this goes. Hopefully this is more of a conversation than a question and answer. So, first of all, knowing Nick, he's going to interrupt at any time when either of you are talking.
Just get ready.
But let's start out with this. You know, Coach, in the years after 1999, after Doc Bevilaqua passed away, we had the Doc logo on our uniforms every year after that. I know Doc had a good influence on you, but talk a little bit about your relationship with Doc Bevilaqua, what he meant to you, what he meant to the team, what he meant to the program, how he helped you get it going.
Doc Bevilaqua was one of the first people I met at Creighton, 1994, and for those of you who had an opportunity or were lucky enough to meet Doc, you won't forget shaking his hand the first time, because it was always, "How do you like me so far?" And, but Doc was a giver. For 30-some years, he was the team physician, traveled with us, never was paid. It was all for the guys. He loved the players.
Jesuits, they didn't pay him? Team doctor?
Another strike, Father. So. But Doc didn't care. Doc was a giver, and you know, all the players. I think we've got 5 doctors in here that played for me, and Doc, I know, touched Dan Calder, Johnny Klein, Matt West, Nick Heiser's here. You guys, you know, he meant a lot. Matt West, Doc. You know, 5 guys that Doc touched to be doctors. And, you know, a lot of stories on Doc. We used to go to lunch, and we hit a lot of places in South Omaha, Malaras, and we'd go in, and no matter what restaurant we went into, there was someone that came up during that lunch and thanked Doc for taking care of them when they didn't have any money and they couldn't take care of themselves, and Doc took care of them for free. And made a big impression on our staff, made a big impression on me. The Santa Francis house, he was always going over there. He'd always slip into my office and, you know, "Doc, Coach, got any extra money? I'm going over to the homeless shelter down the street here," and he was going to feed them that night. And so just a wonderful man that really cared about the student athletes, cared about people. We were getting ready right before he passed to go to Italy. He had never been to Italy, and it was really important to him. And at that time, it was 1998, the summer of '98, and Ras and I were in my office trying to figure out a way to get the money to go. And we were talking, and we were coming up short. And Doc happened to walk in and overheard our conversation. The next day, he brought in $5,000 cash, and he said, "I want my boys to eat well on the trip." And we did eat well. We Swen ate all $5,000 worth, but we did eat very well. And his last recruit was Kyle Korver. Kyle was in just a couple weeks before Doc passed, and took Kyle around. And fortunately, the racetrack wasn't there then, because the very first visit in '94, we get in, and Coach Grincy and I bring a young man in from St. Louis, Matt Fitzsimmons, for a visit. And we had Doc take him around. And he comes back a few hours later, and Matt walks into my office. He's got this big smile on his face. And I go, "Matt, did you have a good trip with Doc?" And he goes, "Yeah, we went to the track." And he goes, "Look, I won."
No NCAA violations?
I looked at Doc and I said, "Doc, we can't do that." And we lost, Matt, because I made him give the money back. And Doc went in there and bet every horse on the race, and Matt couldn't figure out why they won that race. But But he loved the track, he loved the horses, but most of all, and I know there are a lot of former players here, you know how much he loved you guys. He was all about the players, really did a phenomenal job for 30-some years.
Kyle, I want to have you talk about your family. You obviously got a tremendous relationship with your parents, your brothers, and you're married to an amazing lady right over there. I have 3 children now. How has your family shaped you and being a dad changed you?
Whew. It shaped me for sure. I think, we all grow up with examples in life, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not. And who we try to be in life, a lot of times, most of the time, is dictated by those examples. I was fortunate enough to have parents who gave me a great example. And I think people who have been here for a long time, who were here for my years, I'm guessing everyone here has been touched by them in some way. Everyone has a story, and I've gotten that for 37 years. And so they helped shape me to who I was or who I am. You get married, and that person shapes who you are from there on, right? And I wanted to find someone different than me. I met someone one time who was me, and I was a little bit scared. And I met this other girl, Juliet over here, and she has challenged me and made me a much better man. We have 3 little kids. I think we all have, a lot of you have children, and I wanted to be the example that was given to me. It helps dictate a lot of my decisions and how hard I work and how hard I come home. But yeah, family's important. It shapes you more than anything.
And Coach, for you, obviously family's been a big part of your journey. And in your 16 years at Creighton, my guess is your father, Lyle, missed 0 games, Homer Road. I feel like every game at least I was at, he was there. Talk about your dad and your family and how that's helped you throughout your coaching journey.
Well, one of the greatest things about my 16 years at Creighton was having our families involved, Reva's family, my family, them being able to come to all the games and be involved, aunts, uncles, cousins, nephews, nieces. It was great. But the most special thing for me was Dad and Mom when she was live. But having Dad all the ball games was really good. For growing up, he wasn't my buddy, he was my dad. I thought my name was dumb shit till I was 16.
That's changed? Wow, you're getting soft.
He was at all the ball games. Growing up, I've had my brother, who's always been there, my 2 sisters, been unbelievably supportive. And we all benefited from Mom and Dad being at everything. But having Dad go on the road trips, he and Ras were roommates. I don't know what the heck they were talking about all the time.
You're
going
coaching.
over all my mistakes. Yeah. But it sure was great to have Dad everywhere and to have Dirk always there. It does make it special. And like I said, Reva's family all being involved, they're all in the Omaha area, having them in all the games. And as you said, we needed an attendance boost at the start, and we sure got one from all our family being there. But the sport's been great, and it's been great having them around.
Kyle, you're competitive. Okay, I've got 5 children. Dana's got 4. You've only got 3.
Good, man. We are good. It's we feel complete. I'll let you win this one.
I did after 2. We've got 5. You've been in the NBA. You're starting your 16th season. You realize what an anomaly that is. I mean, what have you done? What have you done, and what have you been willing to do that others haven't, that has allowed you to be in the NBA for going on your 16th year?
You know, I think this last year was hard for me in a lot of ways. A lot of you know our story, our family story, and at the end, like, I've never been so just, the well was dry. Like, I had nothing left, you know? And we really talked about being done. We talked about retiring, and you know, we got 3 little kids, 5, 3, 1, it's a lot of work. There's other things that we want to do in life. And after a while, we kind of decided that, you know, we probably want to play at least another year, see how it's going. And I went to the gym by myself, and there's this little high school gym down the street, and they had volleyball practice, and so the hoops they weren't even down. So I just dribbled around, and I just pretended for like an hour. And I was like, man, I love this game. I just love basketball. I love playing. I love competing. I love trying to get better. I love trying to find new ways. It's just what's inside me. And so I think that was, God had given me a ton of physical gifts, but he gave me that. And it's taken me a long way, I think. You know, I really love it. You try to find new ways to train. You try to be smarter. Ultimately, I think God's put a ton of great leaders and people and mentors in my life. You know, I feel like I played basketball a long time, but my life has been really complete. There's been a lot of things going on and outside of just the game. Yeah, so you try to train. You do some crazy training. You do some...
Talk about that crazy training.
Yeah.
So you're picking up a rock that weighs 80 pounds.
You know, so when we have kids, we want our kids to, like, think that anything is possible, right? You want them to dream, and you want them to work, and we want the world to be really big. And then as we get older, like, we tend to get a little more specialized, or we get burned, or we get a little more careful. And like our world, when we're young, we want it to be big, and it starts to kind of go small. And I feel that in basketball, right? I feel like sometimes I'm just kind of, you know, I'm looking to just kind of stay in the corner and all those things. And I was like, I gotta make the world go back out this way. And so some of my friends, they do this thing called a misogi. Every year you do one thing that you've never done before. You can't, your best odds of completing it, it's like you have a 50-50 chance of making it, but you're not allowed to die. We made the deal with our wives, like, you know, we're not allowed to die. But we do all these crazy challenges. We paddleboarded across the ocean for 30 miles. We ran rocks underwater, you know, and I've learned a lot about myself in those situations. It's definitely a new way of training. Yeah, what you got to do to try to push yourself to the limit, you know? It's good.
Better conditioning, Boys and Girls Club track off Cumming Street, led by Coach Altman, or misogi?
That Boys and Girls Club track's no joke, bro.
That's concrete.
That thing was no joke.
That is concrete.
That's no joke.
That is did Coach help kind of fan the flames of that love for the game?
I think so, man. I thought a lot about this lately, and you know, Coach would always tell us I'm not the smartest coach in the world, so I gotta be more prepared than everybody else. And he was. And you know, we all saw it on all the guys who played for him. Like, we would all say that Coach, he worked so hard and he cared so much. And as I look at my career, you know, like I didn't even realize it. I mean, like, when you're growing up, you know, at some point you realize you're like your dad or you're like your mom, and you don't even know how you got there. And it's been that way with Coach for me. I'm like, man, I'm like Coach Altman. I'm taking these matchups so personal. I know he took those coaching matchups like really personal. I'm taking these matchups so personal. I got to know his first move. I got to know his second move. And so a lot of how I'm wired right now is the example that Coach laid out for me. So, I mean, Coach, we all know Coach. He's so competitive at everything, and he really set the tone for our group. That's just who we were. We weren't the most recruited kids, you know, but we fought, man, and we loved it, and I think that all came from Coach.
Yeah, I saw it's a great answer. I saw it, and I touched on it earlier. I saw that love of the game this afternoon. You know, sometimes kids play a sport because they have to. Parents make them, their peers pressure them into doing it. Sometimes it's because, well, I'm tall, so I should play basketball. But you can tell when somebody plays the game because they love it. And sometimes as coaches, we have a tendency to take that love away. But it was so great to watch today to see some of these guys that are 40-some years old still loving to play the game and loving who they're playing the game with. And it's almost mystical. So it's fun to watch.
I think that was the common theme of our group, and I agree. It was funny watching everybody play today. Some people look the same, some people don't. DeAnthony Bowden is like the same person. The other person who hasn't aged is Coach Altman. He looks exactly the same. I don't know what that Nike water in Oregon tastes like, but if you could send some to Brett, his wife and his kids would be great. Or Brett, there he is.
There he is.
We've talked a lot about coaches' competitiveness and drive to win. And the players here that all experience that. But a lot of people in the building tonight really haven't experienced that. They've watched it at games, but they haven't seen it in a practice. And, you know, Nick Ball experienced Coach Altman. And, you know, I think this is an opportunity for us to go behind the curtain a little bit for the 700 people who are
What
here.
practice is like?
So let's talk about, just go behind the curtain. Let's talk about, it's an important practice.
Yeah.
You're coming off maybe a game where guys didn't play so well, maybe they weren't locked in the day before, so coach is going to go through what's important to him as a player and as a team. So go.
Well, Rash, first got to get him going. So usually walk through the door and say, here we go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Boy, some of you guys look like you didn't get in those beds last night. Need to splash a little water on your face, get a little look about you. Fellas, and tuck your strings in now. Don't have your strings hanging out. Don't be looking like that, fellas. Come in for a message quick here. I need everyone in the boat. Need everybody in the boat rowing in the same direction, fellas. Don't need some of you not rowing, some of you rowing in the opposite direction. Everybody rowing in the same direction, fellas. Everybody in the boat. And the keys to this practice, fellas, we're not going to be here long, but we're going to go hard, okay? Keys to this practice, got to lower your base and bend those knees now. Bend those knees. Now, offensively, we got to make them guard. Get that ball popping around. Don't go between your legs and around your back. Make simple plays now, fellas. Need those simple plays. And when you drive it to the basket, nose to the goal. Nose to the goal. And defensively now, you need to bow up and be a man. Bend your knees, lower your base, get in a stance. And fellas, we gotta dive after loose balls. We gotta take those charges. Those are the things you need to do if you want to hang with Banger. And fellas, we gotta learn how to compete now. 10 up, 10 down, 20 up, 20 down. We just gotta swing away. We just gotta swing away, fellas. So we're not gonna be here long, but we're gonna go hard, and after practice, give you $5. You split that between the 8 of you, go get you a breakfast sandwich.
Kyle, do you have anything
Accurate?
to add to that?
Perfect.
Accurate.
Okay, Nick, now after a practice,
Yeah, rest.
okay, maybe it hadn't gone that well, but typically after a practice, you'd go in the film room and coach would go through some film. I mean, take us through that.
Well, first, we got to make sure everyone's here. You walk through the door. 2, 4, 6. Who we missing, fellas? Who we missing? All right, hand me the remote there, Bob. Kyle, where's the pause on this thing here, bud? Where's the pause on this thing here, bud? All right, first possession. Start with the bad. Ball out there. Styling and profiling. Now, Pierce, you're a 4-0 guy, and the scoreboard, they have home and guest. Do they have anything for style points up there? Slow down and make simple plays. Simple plays. All right, next possession here, hit pause. Look at all of us. Straight up and down, fellas. The game's not played up here. Got to bend your knees and lower your base. Now, it was at this point in film, Coach struggled with DVDs a little bit. So, anybody knows with a DVD, you have rewind, and then you have previous chapter to start the whole thing over. So we get halfway through, he'd be ripping on something, and then all of a sudden the whole thing would start over, and you just hear, and by then film was over. So that was...
Kyle, okay, Nick's been there. Yeah, you got a good coach story while we're burning him a little bit. You got a good coach story?
Well, I just to piggyback on the money for the game. You know, we really didn't have any money for a long time for food. And Coach is so superstitious. We, one year, it was my senior year. It wasn't even, we had money then.
Wait a minute. We're a Jesuit institution.
We on the first road trip, we ended up with Arby's before the game. We had Arby's roast beef sandwiches, and we won.
That's it for the pregame meal.
You got one. He gave us his. I think he would give us his sandwich, but we won. And so the second game, we had Arby's roast beef sandwiches again. And we won 11 games in a row on our roast beef sandwiches. And we were at Northern Iowa one time, and there was no Arby's in that city. And he sent PMAC 25 miles in the minivan to go get Arby's roast beef sandwich. Oh my gosh.
So Coach, okay, Nick took a pretty good shot at you, Kyle. Okay, Nick Ball probably had to make a mistake or two in his career. I mean, you got any Nick Ball stories?
Well, first of all, Nick doesn't know how to change a flat tire. We walk out of the Quest Center one night, and it's snowing and it's bad, and he and Patty are standing by his car looking at it. And I walk up and say, "What's wrong, Nick?" He goes, "Coach, I got a flat." And I said, "Well, it's not going to fix itself. Why are you not fixing it?" "Coach, I got no idea how to fix a flat." So it's snowing, cold as all get out. I'm down there fixing the flat.
You got your coaching clothes on?
Yeah, I got a suit on, and he's so lazy. You know, Patty's getting me the lug wrench and everything else. I mean, he can't even help. And then he's telling me, "Don't tell my dad. Don't tell my dad." But probably the funniest thing I can think of, we were playing game day at Southern Illinois on the road. And big game for us. First time a Valley school had been on game day. And big game for us. And we're going to shoot around in the morning. And Erin Andrews is doing the game. So she's walking in, I'm sitting on the scorer's table, and Nick wants to get into broadcasting, and Nick thinks he's a ladies' man, and so he's pulling up his shorts, tucking it in, making sure his hair's okay, and he's walking up to meet her. About this time, Booker Woodfox shoots an air ball and hits him right in the face. And he's got tears in his eyes, and he's trying to introduce himself. We're on the scorer's table just busting up. And so those are two that I remember. The other ones I probably can't tell, but he's had a few.
I had a chance with Erin Andrews. That's until that ball hit my face.
So,
I was on the right path.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There was a chance, 1 in a million. There was definitely a chance. To this day, that was the hardest I've ever seen you laugh. You almost fell over.
Well, Coach, I thought you were going to tell a different Southern Illinois story at the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament. We had played Wichita and Indiana State, and then we were going to play Southern in the championship game.
Well, that was D-Rock's story. That was, this was Kyle's senior year, and, we were really tight. I did a horrible job. I had these guys so tight. We had a good team, and I was on them so hard, and we went into that tournament so tight, and we barely beat Indiana State. They missed a shot that would have tied it late. Next night we beat Wichita State in a close game, 1 or 2 points. And so now we're playing Southern in the championship game, and Southern had won the 2 previous games, blew people out. The place is packed. We've got 18,000 fans in there, and I'm tight as a drum. And D-Rock's a goofy grad assistant, and he walks up and he's tugging at it. He goes, "Coach, look at that sign." I said, "Get away from me." And he said, no, Coach, look at the student section. Look at that sign. And I said, "D-Rock, one more time, just leave me alone." And goes, "Please look at the sign." So I look over there. One of our Creighton students has a big old sign. "Can't spell stupid without SIU." And it loosened me up a little bit, and because I did start chuckling on that one, and then we played a heck of a game. And one reason, Kyle's got great basketball savvy, would be a heck of a coach. Going into that game, they had a big kid, Randall, was giving us problems and giving everybody problems. And Kyle said before the game, "I want to guard him." And I didn't want Kyle to guard him because I didn't want him to get in foul trouble. And Kyle was always trying to tell me what to do, and he came back, 3 or 4 more times, "Coach, let me guard him, let me guard him." And he wore me down, and I let him guard him. I told him, though, you get 1 or 2 quick fouls, this experiment's done. And but he did a tremendous job. He shut him down, and we jumped on him. And it was one of the funnest games we had. It was 42-16 at half, and we had jumped on him, and we emptied the place out pretty quick because most of the fans were Southern Illinois. But that was one of the great things. Everybody started going to St. Louis, and that was really became our tournament.
Yeah, it was. That was like the best game of my life. My favorite game of all time, I think. You would think it'd be some close game or a playoff game or something, but I think winning that game, just how we did it, and that was fun. I don't know if I can tell the story. I'm gonna tell it. So it was a competition with them, right? Like we really didn't really like them a whole lot. They didn't like us a whole lot, and I ended up at dinner 10 years later with their coach. And I walked into this private room in the back, and I was like, I'm going to sit next to him. And I sat down next to him, and he didn't talk to me for an hour. He would not say a word to me. And I'd be like, "Coach, how you doing?" And but that was a real rivalry. That was fun.
Kyle, I've always wanted to ask you this. So for everybody that came after you, all we ever heard about at practice was Kyle this and Kyle that from Coach Altman. Kyle never missed a block out. Kyle never turned it over. Kyle never missed a line drill. So who was the guy or the player that Coach referenced all the time as like the standard when you got there?
I can't imagine hearing that without Ben Walker and Ryan Sears. It was them the whole time I was there. All we heard about was Ben and Ryan. We might have had Matt West and Johnny Klein, Dan Colder and theirs, the doctors. But mostly it was Ben and Ryan.
Whenever I'm around you guys, the team has an amazing love for each other, but you guys also are really competitive. What was that process like with those guys on being friends, loving each other? But when you went up that spiral staircase and it was time to practice, you wanted to go at it. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I really think the guys that were 2 and 3 years ahead of me set the tone for that. there was like 4 or 5 walk-ons who they wanted to be there to be a part of Creighton basketball. And everyone knew their role. I think today, in today's, analytics world, we're all trying to just cram teams with talent, let the talent run and let the talent be free. And, to me, it's like you cram as much character and competitiveness into a group. You got to have talent somehow. Playing with the biggest, baddest guy helps. I know this. But, I think we just had a team packed of just guys with the chip on their shoulder who love the game, who love to take the charges, love to do all the little things. And, to this day, to me, that's the most fun basketball. And we had great leadership. The guys ahead of us really showed my class the way. But it was that spiral staircase. You went up there and you knew you're gonna be in for a day.
Coach, how did you, because he talks about the roles, I think that's something that defined you as a coach, was your ability to define roles for the guys. And sometimes you're telling people something they don't want to hear. How did you go about doing that as a coach?
Well, first of all, I had a great staff. Greg was with me for 15 years. Greg Grinsing, great basketball mind. Kevin McKenna's been with me for 17 years. Great basketball mind. Fish was with me for 15 years at 4 different stops: Marshall, Kansas State, Creighton, and Oregon. Coach DeVries was with me for 12 years here. Lenny Gordy was with me all 16 years. Great basketball guys. And so we had those guys. Todd Eisner was on our staff for a year. Had great graduate assistants, except for the year you were with us. Mike Bargan did a great job. Andy Woodley. We had great coaches. And, fortunately for me, we'd get behind closed doors and we'd argue things out. But when we walked out, they let me make the decision. And then they'd back me, whether it was truly what they believed or not, because they knew we could only go one direction. You could get 4 different opinions, but you knew you could only go one direction. And I think that's the first phase of getting everybody on board as a team, is to have great coaches that trust each other, and really believe in each other. And we were able to build a relatively competitive program because of those guys' efforts. I just tried not to get in the way, because Greg's really talented, Kevin's really talented, Fish, Lenny, Darren, really talented guys. And, so that was the first step. And then getting guys to trust you, and that's why we had a lot of guys that played for us 4 and 5 years. And usually the longer they were with us, the better it got. Except for Nereus, that didn't go very well. But usually when they were with us, it got pretty good. So, and then guys, they liked each other. So you got a coaching staff that got along. You had players that really wanted to compete and win, and they liked each other. And I told the story today to the players. I remember a game, Northern Iowa, where they boxed and won Kyle. Kyle didn't take a shot, and it didn't bother him.
I think it bothered him.
It probably bothered him a little bit. He sure didn't act like it. And Lindy sure loved it, because Lindy got a bunch of shots that night. But, he had 11 assists that night. He just did something else, and his teammates took over. But great group of guys, and that was true, of all the groups. And, we're talking about Kyle's time period, but before that, a lot of players that we had to get it going. We had to change things. And, I mentioned Ed St. Fleur and Randall and Joel Templeman and those guys, Chucky Johnson, some of those guys on those first couple teams where, when you're trying to go from 6 and 7 wins and trying to jump, that's a big step to take, to get out of losing ways. I talked about the 30-some game road winning or losing streak. That's tough to break, and so you got to get guys that really want to compete, and we got guys that wanted to compete, and then we started getting some talented guys that could score baskets that wanted to compete, and that helped.
Hey, Kyle, we've talked a lot about basketball, and Coach has done a great job, and the players did a great job of improving individually and as a group. But if that's all we do as coaches and staff at Creighton, then we're not doing what we need to do. Hopefully, by the time someone gets through their career, they have changed to the point and they've learned how to be good parents, good spouses, good business people, leaders in their business, leaders in their community. Talk a little bit about how you changed from the time you came to Creighton to when you left Creighton, and has that helped you? What have you taken with you from your Creighton education?
Whew. Well, Creighton was a starting spot for me. You leave home and you go and you try to, figure things out on your own a little bit. And I'm so grateful to have had, Coach and so many of you guys that, like Coach talked about, all the assistants, Ras. A lot of you out here, faces that I've seen, year after year after year at different events. Like, there's a lot of people that really affected me and helped me, helped find a vision for who I want to be. But then you got to go out there and you got to try to create it and you got to try to be it. And, I think, we talked a little bit about just playing in the NBA so long, and it's amazing. But what's shaped me more than anything has just been all the hard times. It's all the times where things didn't work out the way I wanted them to. I've never won the last game. I've like ended in heartbreak every year. My parents, they didn't want me to play basketball to get a scholarship. They didn't want me to play basketball and try to make the NBA. They wanted me to play basketball for it to teach me about life, for it to teach me how to work hard, and to teach me how to get up when I got knocked down, to teach me how to be a good teammate. And that stuff you just got to put that stuff into motion, and then you let it go for a really long time, and you learn from your mistakes. And the mistakes hurt sometimes, but hopefully you don't make them again. And so I think, man, it's just been Creighton years were I feel like I had this really soft space, like, protective space to really kind of try to figure a few things out. Then you go on your own and you try to do it. And I don't pretend to have done it the right way the whole time, but I feel like I've learned a lot, and God's been very good.
Did you have any tough classes at Creighton? Any classes you had a difficulty with?
So, Steve Brace puts our schedules together, and I think it was my sophomore, junior year. He gave me speech. And I was like, Steve, I don't know if I'm really into speech. But I went and I gave my first speech, and I got a 8 out of 100. And I was worried. I don't want any Fs, surely, but I was worried I wasn't going to get to play. And I was like, I went to Coach's office with this paper still in my hand. And I'm like, Coach, I'm not sure speech is going to work out for me. And the next day I walked into the Lead Center, which was the new building at the time for beginning acting. And I got a B.
Career after basketball?
No.
No. Does Dane Altman then have a career as an academic advisor after coaching? He got you a B.
Got me a B.
There you go.
Got me in the right direction.
Coach, you've touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to have you expand a little. Obviously, we weren't very good when you came, okay? And you really established a culture and a tradition at Creighton. And twofold question. One was, when did you know that you had the culture you wanted? And secondly, talk about all that it took to get the snowball going in the right direction. I mean, you've talked about your staff, you've talked about some of your players, but there are a lot of people in this room that without them we're not successful. But to establish your culture, when did you feel at Creighton it was more like what you wanted?
That's a really tough question, and you get started and you start talking about boosters and people that helped. It's just like talking about players that help you establish a culture. You can't name everybody, and so first of all, I want to apologize to anybody I miss, because there were so many of you. It wasn't the thing to do in '94 to jump on the bandwagon. I remember the first time Reva and I went and looked for some Creighton apparel. Nowhere in town could you buy anything with Creighton on it. No, I'm serious. There wasn't one place in town that sold Creighton apparel. And, you know, after our first year, we started work on the Civic, and it was a mess, dusty, under construction, plastic on it, you know, no reason to go to a game. We weren't very good, and the place was in disarray. And so there were a group of people who jumped on with this right away that, you know, helped us get it started. And you see Creighton basketball today, and, you know, I'm amazed. You know, the Big East has been great. Greg's been great, what he's done with the program. And there's been so many people that have jumped in. But in those early years, it wasn't convenient. And Father Morrison was a big help. He didn't want to act like it because he didn't want to get everybody mad at him, but down deep, he wanted to win, and he wanted us to be successful. And Father Slagle was great, and you know, Father Hart, Father Hauser, Father Shanahan. You know, we had great support from the Jebi community, and getting started was tough, but there were a lot of guys that started with this, and I'm going to name some names here, and again, I apologize because I can't name everybody, but Ron Gartland and Tim O'Neill and Len Levitt was there, and just guys early that when we had nothing, were really behind us, and then people start jumping in, and you know, Omaha community, Howard Hawks and David Sokol, and we got the community excited about the Quest Center back then, and the Simple family, and McGraw's, McCormick's, just so many families that helped us out, and so many businesses in the community that jumped in. Shadow Ridge Country Club, the country clubs, all the people that jumped in and helped us to get it going. And then Kyle and the players, they won games, and heck, we had to win some games to get it going. And a group of guys that really helped. So it was fantastic support from the community, and fantastic players that worked their tails off, a coaching staff that was unbelievable, that kind of brought it all together. You know, there were a lot of things. Got to tell some recruiting stories about Kyle. I don't know how many more questions you got for me here, but I want to talk a little bit about Kyle, because he and so many of the guys from Iowa, you know, Sears, they're every time I was going on a recruiting trip to Iowa, Sears was always telling me about going to God's country, and but you know, we were just so fortunate, and it is hard to believe that this young man, we beat the University of Nobody to get him. Greg, he was playing for the Iowa Indians.
Iowa Indians.
Iowa Indians AAU team in the summer between his junior and senior year. And
Is that a band logo?
yeah,
We wore the Indianola.
the
Practice
Iowa
jerseys.
Indians, and we were chasing him. Coach Grinstein had heard about him, and so he took me to a little gym back gym in Vegas, and you know, we watched him play, and Greg says, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, he's a no-brainer." And Greg goes, "Which way?" I said, "The good way. I think he's good." And but just, you know, really good shooter, and really good feel for the game. And I mean, I fell in love with him. We fell in love with him right away. And so we were chasing into all these little gyms, and we kept looking. Iowa State showing up, Iowa showing up, Drake showing up, Northern showing up. And we kept looking around, nobody was there. And so first week, I had a home visit set, and I go over to the Korver house in Pella and meet with them. And I, again, you know, I'm not very smooth. And so I walked out there not knowing if we had any chance at all. They seemed like they'd take a look at us, but couldn't really get a feel. And very nice, but not real sure about Creighton. We hadn't won too many games, no NCAA tournaments, no nothing yet. And then we bring them over for a visit. And they have a campus visit. They're sitting in my office. I offer them a scholarship, Mom, Dad, Kyle, and they all smile. They look at each other. And I said, well, we'll take you out for a campus visit now. And Greg and Lenny, we're going to take them around campus. And Mom and Kyle get up and walk out. Dad goes and shuts the door and comes, sits down, and Kevin goes, Coach, are you sure he's good enough? First time ever been asked that question. Their parents are usually telling me their son's too good to play for us, and I said, Mr. Korver, I'm not that nice of a guy. If I didn't think he could really help us, we wouldn't be offering him a scholarship. And I'm so glad we did, because he committed, and that was the start. But, that was the case with a lot of our guys. Kyle talked about it, a lot of them, little chip on their shoulder, and, always wanting to compete. And, I was a walk-on at a junior college. I was a really bad player. I just wanted to play. And I was so grateful when I came to Creighton. Most people don't know I came to Creighton because of health reasons. The Kansas State alumni were sick of me. And but I'm so glad I did. And, and again, the way that you supported our basketball program from 2,000 fans to where we're at now, big move for us was when Father Morrison and Father Slagle supported our move to the Quest Center, and we were able to move. That was huge for us. And then the crowds just continued to grow, and the Big East has been a great move for the school, and so happy for you guys for that.
Well, we could ask questions all night, but and I thank Nick for being a part of this, but hopefully you got a little bit of a snapshot as to why Kyle is the way Kyle is and why Coach is a Hall of Fame coach. So thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Coach. We're going to give you, formally induct you into the Creighton Hall of Fame.
I'm not done yet.
Oh.
All right. Two things. First, I think I forgot Pierce Hibma, one of our doctors. I don't know if Pierce is here tonight, but I think I forgot him. And when we talked about my dad, the way that you guys have continued to embrace him, and at the luncheons and everything, Coach and Ras, I sure appreciate that. And last of all, I've been really fortunate to work for some great ADs. Steve Miller at Kansas State was great to me, and Rob Mullins now at Oregon's been great. But for 16 years, the only one that's been able to put up with me longer than that is Reeve, and 35 years with her. But
I saw her more than she saw you.
Yeah. And but this is the guy who's done it all. We've mentioned some great people at Creighton, Dr. B and Father Hart and Coach Red, and a lot of people that when you say Creighton, you think of their names. When history's said here down the road, when they say Creighton University, they're going to say Bruce Rasmussen. So.
I've got to start working out. That sounded like a hell of a lot like a eulogy. Anyway, let's give one last round of applause to these two before we get to the formal. Don't leave. We must have some budget cuts again. These Hall of Fame plaques used to be a little bigger. Well, how many strikes, Father? Anyway, Coach Altman, I'm not going to read what's on it because I think I went through almost all of that, but it is really an honor for all of us at Creighton to have you in the Creighton University Hall of Fame. It's been really an honor to call you one of my best friends. Thank you very much. And Kyle, not only one of the great NCAA men's basketball players, not only one of the great NBA basketball players, one of the great people to walk this earth. Thank you very much. And then also, we've got one last thing. The number 25 will never be worn again by a Creighton men's basketball player. It's 8:59, so you got one more minute of stuff we can do. But thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. We couldn't get, every one of you should feel a part of this success because we can't get it done. We couldn't get done what we envisioned without every one of you going beyond your jobs and families and make a commitment to us. So you should feel a part of this just like these two. Thank you very much.